All right, and I see actually one of our other panelists is joining right now, so I'm going to go ahead and get them admitted. Pramit, welcome. We're really glad to have you here with us. We're just doing some quick intros. Hopefully you're able to hear. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the group. Pramit, are you able to hear us?
If his audio doesn't work out, I can do the introduction for him.
Thank you. That would be great, actually, if you want to go ahead.
All right. On behalf of Pramit Singh Kohli, everyone, a very good afternoon. Pramit currently works as a senior systems software engineer at NVIDIA. He's a wonderful personality. He and I used to work together at the Career Center, and he has a host of depth of knowledge. I believe he graduated with a degree in computer science, if I'm not mistaken. I hope he can get his audio back so he can correct me if I'm wrong. But he's a wonderful person and a really fun person.
Hey Ganesh, yes, I'm here.
Hey,
Sorry. Nice
take
to
it
talk
over.
to you. Yeah, is this the introductions going on?
Yeah, just quick intros.
So yeah, as Ganesh said, I did my master's in computer systems engineering. That's with the SITC department, and I'm currently working as a senior system software engineer with NVIDIA. So we are the guys that make your games work and look good on your screens. Um, yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing at post ASU. If you have any specific questions, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. All right. So what we're going to go ahead and do for this panel is I'm going to kick us off with a couple of questions that we've prepared ahead of time. And then we also want to make this really interactive. So for everyone who's attending today, please do enter in any questions that you have for the panelists into the chat at any time. We'll go ahead and monitor the chat throughout. And so we'll kind of switch back and forth between asking some of these prepared questions and asking some of your specific questions that you have. All right, so I thought it would be fun to kind of kick off with a fun little icebreaker activity. So we are interested in knowing, what was your favorite ASU memory?
Pramit, do you want to take this? Do you want to go first or should I?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Alrighty. Actually, one of the most fun things I did at ASU was something I did when I was back at the Engineering Career Center. I made a slew of a bunch of promotional videos, if you will, for the Engineering Career Center. And in one of those videos, I dressed up as Steve Irwin, the Crocodile Hunter, and kind of put on my Australian accent for a bit and just went around campus. And we had a person dressed as Sparky, a mascot. We just drove around campus. We did a whole introduction video. I'm sure Vicky would love to share the links with you all after the fact if you'd like to go take a look at that video. And I had a lot of fun going around campus, and it was just mayhem. But I think that was my most favorite memory at ASU, and I got to do this while getting paid for it. There you go. It's in the chat. Uh, if you'd like to take a look at that, it's very embarrassing, but it's a whole lot of fun. And I got paid for it. What better can I ask for?
That's awesome. I love your Australian accent, by the way. That's pretty good. Pramit, what about you? Your favorite ASU memory?
Right. So I guess the most like the one thing that comes to my mind is in the initial days when I just landed to the United States. Uh, there was an event called as Passport to ASU, which was a really good introduction, like to the campus, to the different services we had available, and also just the kind of like a life that like a precursor to the life that we would lead in the US. It was really good fun. We actually had different sort of events, one at MU, one at Hayden, just to go around and uh, go around the entire campus. That was pretty fun. Yeah. That's one thing that comes to my mind.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So our next question, we just want to learn a little bit more about what you do in your current role. So we heard your official titles, but if you can maybe describe for us a little bit more what your roles and responsibilities look like in your current position and just what your day-to-day working life is like.
Oh,
Pramit, why don't you go first this
yeah,
time?
sure. So as I said earlier, so I'm a senior system software engineer. So I basically work with the display team within NVIDIA. So what we do is uh, kind of work on interfacing different kind of monitors or different kind of display devices to the GPU. And typically my day would start like around 10 a.m. with meetings describing the kind of stuff that I'm working on and any problems and issues that I'm facing. Going ahead to spending like 40 to 50% of my time essentially coding and debugging different stuff that I'm working on, and the rest of the time split between meetings and basically interacting with people to get some work done. Um my work essentially involves a lot of system level design and debugging. So that's basically things that interact with the OS, a lot of C++ and things of that nature. Yeah. I that any specific questions, let me know. Yanish?
Yes, sir. I wish I could start my day at 10. So my day sort of usually goes from 8 to late. That's how they usually like to call it, ASM. And I'm basically a senior mechanical engineer at ASM. I do a lot of designing. Predominantly we work in the software called Creo. If some of you are familiar with it, it's kind of like a more advanced version of SolidWorks, if you will, for those who are not familiar. And I do designing, and I also analyze those designs and work on tools and platforms basically that build, or rather service the semiconductor industry basically, that we have silicon wafers where a lot of chemical processes happen, and I sort of build the tools that make these chemical processes possible, and the end product effectively ends up in every single device, every single electronic device that you own, that you would have with a sort of fancy microchip in it. So that's a little bit of what I do.
Right. Thank you both. So I think that's really helpful to get a little bit of a fuller understanding of what your careers look like. And I know another thing that a lot of our students are interested in, kind of alongside, your professional role, is also thinking about work authorization and how you were able to, get authorization to get these roles. So if you can maybe talk a little bit more about the types of work authorization that you've utilized and how you were able to navigate the whole process, and any tips and tricks you have around work authorization too, that would be helpful. So maybe Prami, if we want to go ahead and
Yep,
with you.
sure. So with work authorizations, like with STEM degrees, you get like 3 years. So the first year is like a STEM OPT, and then 2 years of OPT extension. So that's gives you essentially 3 years post your studies on an F1 visa to work. And essentially that also boils down to if your employer is ready to sponsor you for an H1. So that kind of gives you 3 tries to get an H1. Now H1 is a lottery-based system, so you sometimes need those many tries. So I personally got my H1B visa on my second try. So I was 2 years on an F1 visa, and as far as tips and tricks go, I mean the process is pretty much straightforward. So there's really no tips and tricks. You just need the when you're interviewing with anyone, you should probably be upfront that you would need sponsorship, and going forward, and what are their conditions for sponsorship there. So that will be it's good to have that cleared up right up front. Yeah, yeah. The process is pretty much standard and laid out.
I kind of echo what Ramit said, and I face the same sort of experiences. I also got my H-1B visa on the second attempt, and it is a lottery-based system. They're playing around with the rules a little bit, I believe, in the recent past. So the rules are changing slightly, but it shouldn't affect the overall process. It's still going to be your employer applying for your sponsorship. So, like Ramit said, be very clear and upfront while you're going through the interview process with your employer. And I know typically there is a section of students that tends to get into a job that does not offer sponsorships. Now, I would recommend that you definitely talk it out with career services, or you take the advice of someone over at the career center before entering such a role. Even if you do, don't shy away from those roles if you don't have other opportunities. But I would say that definitely keep in the back of your mind that your time with the current visa is limited. As far as tips and tricks go, I know for a fact that there are a lot of companies that would apply for your H-1B visa even before you start. So definitely ask your employer. And this is kind of where getting your foot in the door a little earlier than other people plays out. If you have a successful interview, if you have a job offer, say a couple months before you graduate, and that lines up with when the company can apply for an H-1B, I have heard of cases whose H1s get picked before they even start working. And I do have a couple of examples, such examples at my workplace. So definitely keep that in mind.
I agree. Yeah, good one.
Great. Thank you for that advice. So I know both of you talked about like the importance of, being able to speak up front in an interview, addressing any questions about your work authorization. I don't know if you remember how those questions were asked in your interviews. That might have been a while ago, so no worries if you don't remember exactly how they asked, but how might they ask about that in an interview?
You mean like about work authorization?
Yes.
So when I applied to the different set of companies that I did, it was a question right in the job
In the job
application
description.
itself.
Yeah.
Yep, in the job application itself rather. So it's something that it's like a checkbox that you take that yes, I would require work or sponsorship in the future. And whenever so the next step would be the recruiters would reach out to you, and that's something that they confirm as well, whether you would need a work authorization. So that would be a good time to actually plant in any questions that you have to the recruiter and get things cleared up. Most of the, big companies and most of the Bay Area companies, I would say, understand this because they've been dealing with this, and they know the process, and they're pretty much okay like to apply for your H1, right? Even if you've not yet joined. So like Ganesh said earlier. So yeah, that's when you would actually be wanting to plant in any questions and also tell them about your work authorization status.
I think I'd like to add one more thing to that. Uh, a good way to know if a company would sponsor students or employees is if they've done it in the past. And I know the Career Center has some resources that can help you figure out which companies have sponsored students in the past. So definitely utilize all the resources available and ask people who are working at the company. That's always a good idea. What the company's policies usually are. That's a great measure of how likely they are to sponsor you after the fact that they hire you.
Great advice. Yeah, I especially love that piece of advice about looking at the companies that have experience with it in the past. All right. So I would love to ask next about what aspects of your work you find most rewarding.
Um, for me, I would say I really liked like the reason that I chose this computer systems coursework at ASU was the fact that I really enjoyed doing that in my undergrad and before that. So I was really hands-on with that, and I wanted to make a career in that. And it's to me it's really rewarding to actually see the scale at which what you really work at. Uh, the scale at which it actually affects the consumers, the scale at which you can kind of get to work on, and it's really fascinating. You get to learn a lot more in the company setting, and that's really rewarding for me. There's a lot of growth opportunities as well within a company in different aspects, so you can actually add more skills as you go, and that's really rewarding to me that way. Yeah, Ganesh.
I guess where Pramit and I are in different fields, if you see on paper, but the rewards are very similar because I myself am a hands-on sort of person, and being a mechanical engineer, I think the most rewarding part is when I get to see my designs in real life. You can put a drawing on paper, you can put in dimensions, you can put in whatever you want, you can create the most abstract things. But when you actually see some of those things in real life in front of you, and the way they impact a large, a large array of products, I think that's one of the most rewarding things when you see something work and come to fruition after months of planning and efforts in the right direction. That really gives you a reason and motivation to sort of keep coming back.
Wonderful, thank you. So I know one of the questions that someone said they're interested in the poll at the beginning of the panel is learning about the challenges that you've faced. So maybe you can just spend a little bit of time reflecting on some challenges, whether they're personal or professional, that, as an international student you've faced, international alum, and then how you were able to overcome those.
Okay, so the first set of challenge or a difference that you get when you come here, at least especially for the life that I led back in ASU, was living with roommates. So that was like the first thing that probably is different from what you had back home in India, or from wherever you're coming up from as an international student. And to me, I feel it's one of the most important things. Like you know your relationship with your roommates, build a solid relationship with them, and that way a lot of hassles actually can be avoided. So that's primary first thing I feel is important. uh, on uh, the other thing that is kind of a challenge, or was kind of different for me, was selection of courses. So that's where having a good relationship with seniors, with different people in different associations and societies like SODA or Taylor Software Association, or things of that nature could really help. So having good selection of courses, and lastly is I would say interview prep. Again, there your seniors or people who are in the industry should help you to understand how you ace interviews and how you would prepare for them, and what kind of things are required from you to get that job that you want. Yeah, those are kind of the three things I would say come to my mind here for this.
I think Pramit highlighted some very good points, and to add to his points, one of the challenges that I faced personally was uh, trying to look for a position that would kind of fit my bill. And uh, there's often a complaint from mechanical engineers that there aren't as many positions out there as computer scientists. And that is true to some extent, but that is untrue. It's untrue to say that there aren't any opportunities. You've got to find the right kind of job that fits your bill, and that's where the selection of courses, that's where interactions with seniors, with the career center, use whatever resources you have at your disposal, and just remember that a skill that you garner will never be wasted. If it is it's a good skill that is recommended by people and is recommended by your seniors. So don't shy away from trying new different things, even if it's outside your traditional comfort zone, in within your same field, of course. And sometimes it even helps to try a few things outside your field. For example, there are a lot of mechanical engineers who code, and there are jobs that specifically cater to those people, or they ask for these skills as requirements. So definitely try some things outside your comfort zone once in a while.
Thank you. It's so funny that you said that because I feel like that's almost a theme of the Success at ASU conference today. I know our keynote speaker who kicked us off this afternoon, one of her big pieces of advice was to get outside of your comfort zone. And I feel like I just keep hearing that in every session today. So definitely a theme running through everything.
Thanks, Brian. Actually, I'd like to add something here.
Yeah.
I guess this phrase has been overused, in my opinion. Getting out of your comfort zone. I guess that's what people keep hearing time and time again, but not everyone understands what it means to get outside your comfort zone. And to all those people, I would say it could be something very simple as trying to even interact with someone who is not from your same major. When you're going to ASU, you're in that cycle of going to your classes, getting back home, trying to manage your life outside of the classroom. But even something as simple as doing a project with someone who's not in the same field as you, or someone who doesn't even sit around you in class, even something as simple as that could be outside your comfort zone. So try to get as much out of your classes as possible. I know it's a little challenging, it's a little difficult when you have your friends around, when you have your usual gang of goons, and it's comfortable going back to the same things, but just try to diversify. Just be open to new ideas. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Speaking about some of the challenges, so I know we kind of covered a little bit of both personal and professional challenges. I'm wondering if you encountered the challenge during your job search of coming across like scams or fishy job postings, maybe recruiters, reaching out to you. Was that a challenge that either of you faced?
I remember this one. I wouldn't say scam, but something that's closest to it was when it was like a robotics company down in Florida, which reached out to me, and even like just the first interactions with it was like a startup, so the first interactions with the company I had was with the CEO, and he was a really dynamic personality, nice to talk to. I exchanged my like experiences. We spoke for like 2 hours, and then towards the end, he was okay to hire me, and that felt good. It felt like an interesting company. But when it came to work authorization and sponsorship, it was something that they wanted me to pay for it upfront. And I spoke to this with Vicky about this to Vicky, and then I that's when like I kind of understood that it's something fishy going on out here, and I should really not go ahead with the offer that I have with this company. And I'm glad I did not. Uh, yeah, that's one experience I had when I was trying to get a full-time offer.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. I think I
Off to you, Ganesh.
Yeah, I think I haven't had as many fishy experiences, but a couple of them here and there where it's really easy to identify that either the company is not very large scale, or it's always best to check out any social media that they have. That's a great way to identify if the company is legitimate or not, and always great to talk to your peers. And it's the best to talk to the engineering career center. I'm going to say this time and time again: use all the resources that you have available at ECC. There's wonderful people, and they can definitely help you shape your career.
All right, thanks so much. All right, so I'm just looking at the time now. We've got about 8 minutes left together in this panel. So I just want to remind all of the participants that if you have any questions for our panelists, please go ahead and submit them in the chat box so that we can get to those. So I'm going to ask us one more question here, and hopefully we'll get a couple more questions coming in the chat. So guys, if you could give a piece of advice to the students who are attending this panel today, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to them? So maybe something that you wish someone had advised you, or maybe something that someone did advise you, or maybe something new altogether?
Um, so one thing, so first of all, can you guys hear me? I think I lost my audio in between.
Yeah, you.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So one piece of advice I would like to echo one small thing what Ganesh said earlier was to get out of your comfort zone, and really interact with as many folks that you can in and around ASU, in and around Tempe, uh, and really get a good vibe of the life at here at ASU in Arizona. To also enjoy your time, that's also important. I know sometimes the stresses of studying and everything can come up, so it's really important to also take some time off and enjoy as well. And lastly, when it comes to interview prep and all of that, start as early as you can, as possible. You don't really need to wait until the last 3 months, 2 months as such to really apply for jobs. You can start earlier than that and take your time with it, with the interview process and everything. Yeah, those kind of three things that I would say.
That's actually very well said, Pramit. Uh, and I'm not going to repeat getting out of your comfort zone. I guess the one piece of advice that I would have for y'all would just be to try and do as much as you can. Um, the time that you have at ASU is actually amazing because of the number of resources you have at your disposal. When I say resources, I mean everything from your professors to the kind of equipment that you guys can use, the access to labs, professors, all of these things. It's just massive and it's endless. And the number of things that you can do inside the classroom and outside the classroom is endless. So try to get involved in as many things as possible. It's okay if you lose sleep. I wouldn't say sacrifice on on your food or anything, but it's okay if you lose a couple of hours of sleep here and there. But try to maximize your time at ASU. Enjoyment is great, but try not to deviate uh, from your end game. Try to build up a goal and try to work towards it. And I guess, like Pramit said, it is never too early to start. I know people say it's never too late to start, but it's even better if you start early, or it's the best if you start early. Get your foot in the game as early as possible. That'll definitely separate you from the rest of the crowd.
Perfect. And I'm taking a look at the chat and I don't see any questions so far from our participants. So I think unless anything comes into the chat, I've got one final question. Sometimes when you're hosting a panel, you are kind of in one mindset, only asking a certain type of question. So I want to ask the panelists to ask each other one question. So Premi, if you want to go ahead and ask a question of your fellow panelists first, and then we'll flip it around and do the other way.
Okay, what is one thing that you would have liked to do differently at ASU? Like, Ganesh.
Definitely, I would have liked to explore some more skills at ASU if I had more time. I would have liked to learn a little more of my analysis background. I would have liked to explore that a little more, and I would have liked to start even earlier than when I'd started and tried to focus on, some maybe larger corporations or some such things. I mean, it's a deep question, and
Mhm.
yeah, there's definitely in retrospect you always think that you could have done more.
True.
I guess that's it. That means I have to ask you a question now, Pramit. Hmm.
Shoot.
I guess let me ask you this: how different was it when you started, or let me rephrase this. I know this might be a question on the minds of a lot of people. What did you have in mind when you were looking for a job versus how was your job really like, and how has it evolved up until now?
Good question actually. Um, so when I was looking for a job, I was looking for something that would actually, first of all, like uh, get me some access to. I was really hungry about understanding how the folks here, like how things are actually laid out and on a scale of big company. So I was really curious about that at some like uh, kind of I lacked that understanding how things scale up in terms of that. So I was really curious to understand that. And I initially thought that most of my work would really be behind a computer desk, looking at a some sort of software or some sort of an IDE, basically thing that you get program into and just probably write code 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day, or whatever. But the thing that really, when I joined in, and of course, there's a bit of that, but it's a lot about people management and a lot about people interaction, and that's what really makes the balls roll in a company. That's what basically moves everything. It's a lot of uh, meetings. It's a lot of understanding different stuff from people, and it's a lot of interaction there. And that's something I was pleasantly surprised with. And it's not really a very isolated kind of environment. It's not probably how movies like Social Network, I don't know, things of that nature show you that it's just like coding and I know behind
Social
things.
network, Silicon Valley,
Yeah,
people sitting behind laptop screens with their
yeah,
eyes almost
yeah,
about to
popping out
bust.
and hunchback and stuff. It's not that. It's a lot of, it's a lot more fun than that. A lot of interaction, and that's good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you. I think those were great questions. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you to our panelists once more for being here with us today. I know that all of the students who are participating really enjoyed hearing from you, your personal experience. So we really, really value your time, and thanks again for joining. And to all of the participants, thank you for being here this afternoon as well. Hope that you were able to relate to the stories and experiences that you heard, and be encouraged to get out of your comfort zone, try new things, and just keep going, keep rocking it at ASU. So thanks, everyone. We do have our fourth session for Success at ASU starting at 3:45. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the agenda in the chat for everyone. So you can go ahead and check out whatever session you would like for session number 4 starting at 3:45. All right. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks for having us, Brian.
Thanks for having us.